You mentioned Linklater and then Robert Rodriguez. Also, the Duplass brothers. Where was Puffy Chair filmed? Was it Louisiana?
Yeah, the Duplass brothers definitely come from Louisiana. I also lived there for a couple years, and recently I did a season of a TV show down there that we wrote. And it was the Duplass brothers' kind of way of doing things that we made it. It was called Home Remedy, and we made it for a couple $100, and it was 5 20-minute episodes. And it was truly a labor of love. It was a very tricky project to pull off, but it like you mentioned, the Duplass brothers, they are truly the model, I think, for the way that I try to approach filmmaking a lot of times. I've got their book on my shelf. I really enjoy, their work, and I enjoy their attitude, because they know that, you can make $100 movie. It's probably not going to be the best movie, but it can at least get the ball rolling. And I think a lot of times as filmmakers, that's what we struggle with, right? It's how do we get the ball rolling? How do we take that first step, get the script out of our head? And a lot of times I think it's just not, it's not overthinking it, because I think the process is so in depth that a lot of times, we can get lost in the sauce, so to speak. So, it's kind of like before you jump into all of these different steps of, cinematography and casting and lighting, if you just have a little film you need to make to get it out of your system to even know if you like filmmaking, just do it. Get some friends, make it happen. And I think it's that attitude I've tried to take. And a lot of times, even now, I just made a feature film last year, and I was the cinematographer, and that scared the crap out of me at the time. I enjoy shooting, but I always, before that, I always made sure I had a dedicated cinematographer. And it just so happened the time we wanted to film, the folks I was interested in, we couldn't get a hold of. So it was either make it then or wait months and months. And so obviously, with the state of the world right now, I don't think we could have made it happen if we waited months and months. So I'm quite happy that, I did kind of just jump in and do it. And it was the Duplass brothers' way of just saying, well, hey, don't overthink it. You know how to shoot. You're not going to try to win an Oscar with your cinematography here. You have the steps you need. You know how to operate a camera. Just catch the story and let the rest take care of itself. And so I try to approach it in that kind of a naturalistic way a lot of times.
And what were one or two things that you learned how to course correct from being your own DP that maybe if you hadn't have sort of been, had to land on your feet, so to speak, and do it, you wouldn't have known?
Well, I think the good thing with being my own DP is I had the privilege of, working with some awesome DPs in the past for other projects I've done. My cinematographer for Son of Clowns, my first feature, he was super amazing, and I got to learn a lot from him in addition to everyone else I've worked with. And I also come from the corporate world of making video projects and the music video world, where a lot of times the crews and budgets are a lot smaller. So you get used to being your own cinematographer in a pinch, and that's happened to me a couple times. So I think that definitely helped as well. And again, I do think it was the thing where I had to really kind of learn to walk and chew gum at the same time, if you will. It was figuring out, hey, how much time do I need to spend pushing buttons and getting that ISO just right and getting the lighting just right, because, the director side of me is thinking, well, we've got, an hour before the sun sets, and I really need to sit down with this actor and give him 10 minutes of time to really run through this rehearsal. And at a certain point, you kind of have to do the math in your head and say, okay, well, do I push those buttons or do I do that with him? And so, I think I'd like to think that I found a way to sort of balance everything around where I kept the setups pretty lean and pretty simple. So I didn't have to stress a lot of times about that, where, I think if I was trying to make, some big action chase movie where there was a lot of moving parts, I don't think I could have done it that way. But a guy talking to another guy in a field while he's walking away, that seemed a little more doable in that situation. So I think when you do stuff, like shoot your own film, it's kind of designing it from the get-go to say, okay, I'm not going to put myself into a crazy, film scenario like a car chase scene that I know I can't really pull off as a one-man band. So it's kind of, crafting it to what could work in that situation. And even then it doesn't make it easy, but it just sort of, takes a little pre-production to kind of figure out, if it's even feasible.
So you had almost two parts of your brain.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word, arguing. Like one is saying, well, this footage is too grainy, I need more light. And the other one's saying, but we've got to hurry up and feed the crew, kind of thing. Was it got kind of tug of war? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And it was funny too, because a lot of times, I would tell the actors, I'd say, hey, I'm sorry I didn't give you enough time for that scene. I felt like we were rushing. And they were like, no, you're good. You're doing all these things. It's great. And so I think a lot of times as filmmakers, a lot of that's in our own head. And a lot of it's self-imposed. And I think it's good because it shows that we care. And it shows that, we don't want to just rush through something. We want to take the time we can. But I think a lot of times we're very tough on ourselves mentally if we're doing filmmaking, especially indie filmmaking, where the crews are small and you're spending a lot of time, with your own script and your own cinematography, and you're going to edit it later, and just kind of all these little things like that. And I think it's interesting just because it reminds you to be a little kinder to yourself sometimes. And I think your crews can see if you mean well a lot of times. So,
do you think there's a different protocol on a set in the South? Maybe more, yes, please, thank you. Whereas maybe other parts, and nothing, no slight to them, but just things are done differently. That if a filmmaker goes from a different region, that they have to kind of know, oh, hey, I'm here, or maybe they're not going to say yes, please, and thank you. And it might just seem a little more abrupt, but it doesn't mean they're mad at me, kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think where you make films and how you make films is going to dictate the kind of, quote unquote, unspoken vernacular of your film set. I've worked on, bigger crews when I was living in Louisiana. New Orleans is a big production hub. So I'd go crew on a lot of things there just to freelance and make some money. And a lot of the crews there were, coming from LA, and we were, doing the shorthand. And there, like you said, there was not a lot of the please and thank you. It was a lot of times like, grab that, do this, go. And that's appropriate because, that is a large scale television show that we were working on, and there are deadlines, and there are people staying in hotels and people that need to get picked up and leave by a certain time. And certainly those things happen in indie film too. But I think a lot of times when you're making an indie film, it kind of comes from a place of love a lot of times rather than profit. A lot of times it comes from a place of, hey, we just want to tell a story. Maybe we'll make money, maybe we won't. But I think that unspoken vernacular kind of separates things a little bit. And I don't think one is better or worse than the other. Because I know a lot of people who work outside of the studio system or outside of, New York or LA, they kind of think, oh, well, that's the way they do it. This is the way I do it. I think it's just different strokes for different folks. And I think that when you're making your project, you have to just be honest with yourself and say, okay, do I know what I'm making? Because if I'm making something with like 5 people and I know them really well, and that's the whole crew, we're probably going to have a very different on-set kind of shorthand than when I was working in New Orleans and I was working on the big crews with like 50, 60, 70 people. And, that you're working with people who are in unions and this and that. And it's a different experience. And again, it's not to say one is better than the other. It's just that, on one particular week you're here and the next you're there. And I think you can go back and forth. So, yeah.